Hello and welcome. Tonight, for the second time this year, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises benchmark interest rate by 200 basis points to 24.75% from 22.75%. Review your role in resolving civil disputes. Immediate past Chief of Defense Staff General Rotimi challenges the military, calls for deeper analysis and investigations of the recent killing of 17 soldiers in Okwama in Delta State. And Bishop of Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Matthew Kuka, urges the federal government to demonstrate greater commitment to addressing the challenge of insecurity in the north.
On Business News tonight, Central Bank Governor reiterates that all FX backlogs are being cleared, labels unverified transactions as illegal.
On Sports News tonight, Team Nigeria boxers that participated at the African Games want more attention to be given to the sport as the victorious boxers return home from the Games held in Accra, Ghana.
And from the nation's capital, the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil, Akeredolu, says the solution to Nigeria's economic challenges lies within the petroleum sector.
And in international news from London, a major bridge in the US city of Baltimore has collapsed into the Patapsco River after it was hit by a container ship.
For the second time this year, the CBN's Monetary Policy Committee has hiked benchmark interest rate by 200 basis points to 24.75% from 22.75%. Furthermore, the Apex Bank retained the cash reserve ratio at 45%. Asymmetric corridor of the MPR was adjusted to plus 100 minus 300 basis points. With Nigeria's headline inflation surging to 31.7% in February, the committee found it necessary to hike the MPC rate again as expectations, or the MPR rate again, I beg your pardon, as expected by the experts.
For the second time in 2 months, the Monetary Policy Committee is convening to address the media after its 2-day meeting. First, the central bank governor who heads the committee reels out its decisions. This includes to raise the monetary policy rate by 200 basis points, to adjust the asymmetric corridor around the MPR to plus 100 or minus 300 basis points, to retain the cash reserve ratio of deposit money banks at 45%, to adjust the cash reserve ratio of merchant banks from 10% to 14%, as well as retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
The Monetary Policy
The governor of the central bank gives reasons for the decisions.
The considerations of the committee at this meeting focused on the current inflationary pressures and the need to anchor inflation expectations, as well as ensure sustained exchange rate stability.
Recently, the bank has continued to bear its mind on key issues that affect the economy. The Apex Bank boss seized the opportunity to clarify the bank's position on some of these issues.
For price discovery to happen, certain fundamentals or certain attributes need to be in place. And you would recall that there's been a whole myriad of different circulars that have come out over a period of time, which were designed to remove those distortions such that the market became a lot freer and the concept of willing buyer and willing seller became something that was a lot easier to establish.
And on the Binance matter that has recently dominated conversations.
In this particular case, the responsibility for regulating cryptocurrency is not our own. It isn't ours. It is strictly that of the Security and Exchange Commission.
The next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee is scheduled for May 20th and 21st, 2024. Before that time, though, the central bank expects a moderation in the inflation rate. Sarah Chimugu, Channels Television News.
All right, joining us on the News at 10 to discuss more on this latest development. I'm being joined by the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company Limited, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Great to have you on the News at 10, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we were here just last month to talk about the benchmark interest rate. Of course, then it was raised to 22.75%, but now the latest 24.75%. Are we tightening or actually choking when it comes to the this latest development, in terms of the economy?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It was 4 weeks ago, we went up by 400 basis points, and now we've gone up by 200 basis points again. But what we seem to forget is that for 7 months, there was no activity. So what we did last time was catch up, arrears of interest rate hike. And now we've done it 200 basis points again. It is tightening, it's not choking. But you can't make omelette without breaking eggs. So the question is that, what's going to happen to inflation, right? I think that it's a big question,
especially food inflation.
Food and core inflation. So definitely, we are beginning to see signs improvement. And one of the big things, especially, is one of the big issues that is making troubling minds today is what's happening to the naira. Because the question is, catch-22, is a weak naira causing inflation, or is inflation causing a weak naira? So, but these are the considerations that we're doing. One, headline inflation up to 31.7. We expect it to go higher to around 33, 34% after the Ramadan. Exchange rate has appreciated by 45%. Today it's trading at 1,320. It went up to 1,915. So the naira has become 45% stronger in a matter of 6 weeks. GDP still remaining the same numbers, 3.46. But the big elephant in the room is money supply growth. Money supply is now 95 trillion naira. And I said it again, 95 trillion naira. It has expanded by 79%. So if your GDP is at 3.4% and your money supply grows by 79%, ab initio, you are 73% underwater. And that is the big. So we need to tighten at this time. You can't call it choking. So, but what are the breakdown of inflation shows that 31.7% is headline inflation. That's year on year. If you bought food last year, compared to this year, it should be 31% higher. But the facts, we'll look at that in a minute. Core inflation, which is inflation less seasonalities, is 25%. But food inflation, the big stoking factor, 37%. But what are we seeing? We are seeing here that inflation begins to decline in May, June, but there's a minimum wage issue. Once you push up the minimum wage in May, which is more than likely, then inflation will not come down. So again, if wishes were horses, beggars were right. I heard the central bank governor saying that inflation is going to come down in May. God bless Nigeria. But the truth is that with the minimum wage, you are bound to have another spike in inflation. But it's not going to break the bank. It's just going to mean that we are going to have to deal with inflation over a longer period. Now, this is money supply growth. There's a positive correlation between money supply and this, but CBN is mopping up interest rate hikes. And the key decision now was that to actually increase the CRR for merchant banks from 10 to 14%, and left the asymmetric corridor. So banks can actually borrow at a lower rate because the banks are actually choking. So the most important thing is, how does it affect you as an individual? And we're going to look at that. One major thing, the price of diesel. Diesel is a major stoking factor. 10% of inflation comes from diesel price. The price of diesel today is 1,100 per liter. That's what the supply price is. But on the retail side, it's 1,500. Dangote refinery has already started putting diesel in the market, and people are buying that in anticipation and actually bringing it down. If it stays at 1,100 and it continues to go in that direction, this will help to bring down inflation significantly. The bakers, for one, because they're funding their furnaces and their ovens with diesel, you're going to see that actually improve. So for cement manufacturers and bakers, this is good news. Now, Naira weakness, token inflation. This is where, when the exchange rate went all the way up, it led to inflation. Coming down, now that exchange rate is appreciating, it will come down, but you see in economics, say prices are sticky downwards. So we are going to see an appreciation, a reduction in prices, but much slower than when the prices went through the roof. So, and that's exchange rate pass-through contributes 50% to headline inflation. And that is why they're saying that is exchange rate causing inflation and inflation reckoning and reacting. So what next do we see? We saw it at 1,915 in February. I mean, 1,915 naira to $1 in February. After February MPC meeting, it came down to 1,600 naira to $1. Today, it's 1,320, and it could be heading towards 1,250 very soon.
Should we be worried with that?
No. The next slide shows you that, is the naira going to tumble again? The answer to that is no, because this guy is already working on banana peelings. Why is it not going to? $7 billion of verified forward commitments have been cleared, so the central bank says. Diaspora remittances, about $1.3 billion, are likely to be coming in, but we keep that aside. Oil production is up at 1.4 million barrels a day, and foreign portfolio flows have come in because of high interest rates at 2.3. Crude oil price at $86 a barrel is good, and cocoa is now at a record high, historical high, $9,000 for a ton. The average price last year was $2,000. So we are doing 250,000 tons this year. So cocoa will bring about $3 billion if it stays this way. So it's good. The wet floor is there. The naira is not going to tumble again. Now let's go down. This is the slide that is important. In February, a bag of rice was 80,000. It went up to 95, and now it's down to 88,000 naira a bag. We expect by June it will come down to 85,000 because the Ramadan and fasting is over. Now, the price of a loaf of bread is 1,300. In February, it is now at 1,600. We expect it to drop to 1,400. Beans was 75,000 in February, 80,000 right now, and we expect it to stay at 80,000 because beans is very important. The yellow gari is 30,000 in February. It was 32,000 today, and it's going to go down to 31,000. Eggs, 3,800 in February, 4,500 for a crate of eggs today. It's going to go down to 4,000 in June. A tuber of yam stays the same, 3,000 naira for a tuber of yam. Current price 3,000. In June, it stays at 3,000. So what next to you? What does this have? The impact of exchange rate appreciation. This is where it gets interesting.
Very interesting.
Your international school fees, even though the naira is appreciated by 45%, your international school fees will not go down by more than 15%, but it's good. It's green. Cost of medical tourism, yes, it goes down by about 20%. So if you're going outside or bringing international doctors here, 20%. Your airfares, international airfares, yes, the naira is appreciated, but we expect airfares to reduce by 25%. So if you're traveling abroad, good news for you this summer. Diesel effect on intercity transport fares will stay the same, and actually intercity transport fares will actually drop. The only thing that stays the same is your house rent. Your house rent remains the same. So what does high interest rate mean? Stock market is going to dip some more. You'll see that happening when somebody comes in this evening, to talk about it. Higher borrowing costs, higher loan default rate, and increased marginal propensity to save. So in closing, the conclusion is that what next? The next meeting is May 20th and 21st. Inflation remains elevated for H2 because of the minimum wage and other things, but the naira appreciation will help it, and the diesel reduction will help it. It will moderate towards the end of the year to 23%. The MPC will maintain status quo in May, definitely. Month-on-month inflation will reduce in March, and the stable naira will attract more foreign portfolio inflows. Fiscal measures will complement monetary policy, and diesel price will fall further below 1,000 naira, thanks to Dangote. Thank you very much.
All right, Thuro, definitely we'll be keeping tabs on this as it continues.
The Easter.
Especially for the Easter, yes.
Easter is going to be flat, but after Easter comes the good news, but very, very slowly. It's too early to start celebrating, but some good news may be coming down the road.
I definitely do expect some good news. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
The CEO, Financial Derivatives. Company Limited. Well, in part two, after the break, of course, we'll be taking the latest from Senegal's presidential election. And of course, plus the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, General Akeredolu, wants the military, calls for deeper analysis and investigations on the recent killing of the 17 soldiers in Okwama community of Delta State. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. For the second time this year, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises benchmark interest rate by 200 basis points to 24.75% from 22.75%. Review your role in resolving civil disputes. Immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, General Akeredolu, challenges the military, calls for deeper analysis and investigations of the recent killing of the 17 soldiers in Okwama in Delta State. And Bishop of Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Matthew Kuka, urges the federal government to demonstrate greater commitment to addressing the challenge of insecurity in the north. And U.S. bridge collapses as U.S. President Joe Biden promises to have the bridge rebuilt. The immediate past Chief of Defense Staff General Akeredolu is asking the military to reconsider its role in resolving civil disputes in order to focus on its constitutional mandate. He urged the military to go further in the analysis and investigations into the recent killing of 17 soldiers in Okwama in Delta State in order to avert a recurrence. General Akeredolu made the remark while addressing participants at a 3-day Joint Task Force Commanders Conference organized by the Chief of Defense Staff in Abuja.
This is the second Joint Task Force Conference organized by the Chief of Defense Staff to review the performance of security agencies involved in the various theaters of operation. Participants at this conference are drawn from the Armed Forces, the Nigeria Police Force, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Office of the National Security Advisor. The focus is the security situation in the country.
This conference provides an avenue for a comprehensive evaluation of the implementation of the decisions reached during the main conference and other emerging issues with a view to addressing the threats to our national security. Importantly, I would like to recognize the uncommon sacrifice of the officers and men who were killed in Okwama in Delta State and all others who have paid the supreme price.
The murder of 17 soldiers in Okwama in Delta State is brought to the fore. Former Chief of Defense Staff General Akeredolu urges the security agencies to re-strategize.
The perpetrators of this heinous crime must be made to face the full wrath of the law. To forestall future occurrence, therefore, there must be further conversations on the limits to aid to civil authority. As we encourage non-kinetic operations and community engagements, I believe that it is necessary for the armed forces to curtail the apparent descent to see-finish syndrome. That's my coinage.
Participants at the conference share their thoughts on the nation's security challenge.
While the armed forces of Nigeria continue to record milestones of success in theaters of operations across the country, this has not been without some major setbacks. Notable is the recent ugly and gruesome incident in Delta State that led to the loss of lives of our gallant officers and soldiers. This loss is a great mishap for the entire nation, and the perpetrators must surely be brought to book.
My capacity as Minister of State for Defense, I can attest to the dedication and unrelenting effort of our armed forces, spearheaded by the Chief of Defense Staff in securing our dear nations from internal and external enemies of the democracy.
A 3-day conference with the theme Consolidating Operational Successes Across All Theaters of Operations is aimed at reviewing the performance of officers and men of the Joint Task Force.
Meanwhile, a former Federal Commissioner of Information and elder statesman, Chief Edwin Clark, has condemned the killing of the 17 soldiers in Okwama community describing the act as a barbaric one which must be punished. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Chief Clerk also condemned the invasion of his country home in Akeredolu and that of his father in Ughelli allegedly by the military over allegations of harboring one of the suspects involved in the heinous act in Okwama of Delta State. He, however, said that he had forgiven the military after receiving an apology from one of their commanders.
I've been very, very upset that army officers, 17 of them, 4 of them are officers, should be brutally killed in a country like our own, not at the war front, not counteracting any dangerous group, killed in cold blood. I said, no. We must look for these bastard people, these people who are barbaric, wicked, unpatriotic, evil. So I was therefore surprised when I got a call from the general, is it Absalam or something like that, asking me, apologizing to me. So I thought somebody died. No, he said we wrong our tracked record, tracked your room, and that someone was there. I said, but how can that happen? Anyway, I have no house in Ughelli. 2, my father had a compound in Ughelli. It was later I discovered that it was not properly briefed. It was my house, my living house in Akeredolu, with all security doors and everything. They don't even ask for the keys.
To insecurity in the north, where 10 persons have been reported killed and about 12 others abducted after bandits attacked Gidan Zuma community under Bungudu local government area of Zamfara state. An eyewitness told Channels Television that the bandits stormed the area on Sunday night and started shooting indiscriminately, taking the people by surprise. The spokesperson of the Zamfara State Police Command, ASP Yazid Abubakar, when contacted, said he was yet to get information about the attack. In a similar incident, bandits operating around Munaye Forest also on Sunday night in an attempt to invade Safe town, the headquarters of Safe local government of Zamfara State, killed a member of the Zamfara State Community Protection Guards. This happened as the personnel of the security outfit alongside the military engaged the bandits in a gunfight. Staying with insecurity in the north, the Bishop of Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Bishop Matthew Kuka, is challenging the federal government to demonstrate what he terms a clear commitment to addressing the challenge in the region. He criticized what he perceives as inadequate readiness of the government to effectively deal with the long-standing issues which have remained unresolved for decades. He spoke to Channels Television at an event in Port Harcourt, the River State capital.
It is clear that the federal government at the highest level knows what is going on. At least the intelligence community has an idea. There are key Nigerians who are saying quite openly that they know more than we think the rest of us know. And I think that it's a business of the federal government to find out those who claim to know where the bandits are, and those who are collaborating and cooperating with the bandits. I mean, it's the greatest humiliation of our nation. We cannot, the psychological impact on this on our children is unacceptable. So for me, it's something that the security agencies, in collaboration with those that they say, the people who have said quite openly, okay, that they know what is going on. And I think the federal government has the capacity to go after those people.
So the Judiciary, the Port Harcourt Division of the River State High Court, has ruled that Mr. Celestine Omehia is not a former governor of River State and as such is not entitled to the pensions meant for former governors and their deputies. After the expiration of the tenure of former Governor Peter Odili, Mr. Omehia was elected and sworn in as governor of River State on May 29, 2007 on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. Following the legal battle that trailed that election, the court ruled that Mr. Chibuike Amechi was the validly elected candidate of the PDP and was eventually sworn in as governor. However, during the tenure of Mr. Nyesom Wike as governor of the state, he enacted a law recognizing Mr. Omehia as former governor. But in 2023, he withdrew the recognition and asked Mr. Omehia to refund all pensions earned, prompting Mr. Omehia to approach the court, demanding that he be recognized as a former governor of the state. Delivering judgment on the matter today, Justice Daketima Akio, however, held that the counterclaim by the state government asking Mr. Omehia to repay 695 million naira was lacking in merit, as he did not compel anyone to pay him the money. Meanwhile, in Kano State, a Chinese businessman, Zheng Guozhong, standing trial for the murder of his 23-year-old Nigerian girlfriend, has been found guilty and sentenced to death. The Kano State High Court sentenced Guozhong to death by hanging after convicting him of the offense of culpable homicide. Now, the Chinese businessman on September the 16th of 2022 stabbed Umokusum Buhari to death in her family house after many years of their relationship. In other stories, the 44-year-old candidate in the Senegal presidential election, Diomaye Faye, is promising the International Committee that Senegal will remain an ally to all countries it deals with and will rule Senegal with humility. Mr. Faye commended his opponents for honoring what he describes as the time-honored Senegalese tradition of conceding defeat, assuring that he will tackle corruption in the country. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, who is in Dakar, Senegal, has more.
The waiting game continues here in Dakar, Senegal, as we await the official announcement of the results of the presidential election. According to what we've heard, the appeal courts in the country has to make the announcement. And after that, the opposition parties, those who have lost the election based on the announcements made, would have to petition or not. Time will be given for that. When that is done, then the country's Constitutional Council will make a formal announcement on who has won the election. Though all indications show that Mr. Faye has won the elections, the 44-year-old turned 44 on Monday, just a day after the elections, and he has received messages from multiple members of the opposition. Now, he has given a speech after receiving these messages from those who, according to reports, have lost the elections. He's pledging to rule the country with humility and fight corruption. Senegal is dealing with a massive unemployment rate in a country that is mostly populated by young people who are looking forward to change. Now, there are concerns about his ability to rule. He is regarded as an outsider. He was a taxman for the country, but many older members of the population that we've spoken to are concerned about his ability to handle world politics and how he'll be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with other leaders who have spent more time in government and probably have more experience. Well, his supporters believe that it is time for a change in Senegal and are looking forward to, a time of his time in office, which many believe will bring about the Pan-Africanism that he promises, opening up the country to more collaborations, being more Pan-African in its outlook, and of course, fighting the corruption that he says has prevailed in the country over the years.
Still ahead on the news at 10. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria reiterates that forex backlogs have been cleared, labels unverified transactions as illegal. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back. Let's now head to the nation's capital, and Terry Kumi is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studio. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Ayo. Now let's talk economy now. The Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil, says the solution to Nigeria's economic challenges lies within the petroleum sector. Mr. Lokbobiri made the assertion during a sectoral retreat for heads of agencies and top management staff of the ministry in Abuja on ways to build synergy for enhanced development in the oil and gas sector. Our correspondent Kumbi Aboluwade reports.
The Ministry of Petroleum Resources convened this sectoral retreat for heads of agencies and top management staff of the ministry to discuss ways to enhance development in the oil and gas sector. The Permanent Secretary opened the meeting with a reminder about the importance of capacity, commitment, collaboration, and accountability.
We will implement the employment performance management system to the fullest. This initiative will ensure that accountability is ingrained in our operation, driving efficiency and excellence across the sector.
The oil and gas sector, with its own myriad of challenges, such as oil theft, appears to be on a promising path, and the ministers want that enhanced.
We are tackling the issue of insecurity. We are also tackling the issue of pipeline vandalization. We are, doing whatever we can to see how we can attract investment on a sustainable basis, not just in the upstream, but also in the midstream and then in the downstream. It's also an obligation to see how we can create the best environment for investments to come in. We have investments in Bunga, not alone. We have over $5 billion investment this year. But that is predicated on certain things that we need to do. We removing all the bottlenecks. We taking some very proactive steps. We ensuring that our environment is globally competitive.
One of the key elements in our transition towards a more sustainable energy future lies in the strategic utilization of natural gas. First and foremost, we must prioritize infrastructure development to support the exploration, production, processing, and distribution of gas. This includes investment in gas pipelines, liquefied natural gas (LNG) facilities, and gas processing plants.
Heads of agencies and top management staff of the Petroleum Ministry are expected to come up with ideas at this retreat that will change the trajectory of the sector in Nigeria. From the nation's capital, Kumbi Aboluade, Channels Television News.
A true Nigerian identity that transcends ethnicity, religion, and political affiliation is possible through a strong national narrative that inspires confidence amongst Nigerians. This is the thought of the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, at the maiden edition of the National Spokesperson Summit in Abuja. The minister also spoke of trust as the cornerstone of sustainable communication, hinting that his ministry's flagship national orientation campaign tagged Nigeria's Value Charter will serve as a blueprint and policy for a national values system. Our correspondent, Victoria Longjohn, reports.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, is amongst other invited dignitaries at the maiden edition of the National Spokesperson Summit.
You cannot build a successful nation without the functions and tools of public relations. Those who have done it before will tell you that reputation is a core asset.
The summit, with the theme, Change Narratives, Change Society, seeks to build a national consensus among spokespersons on the appropriate narratives that can facilitate good governance and development in Nigeria.
How do you do that? Information must be given accurately, timely, honestly, sincerely, and with utmost sense of patriotism and responsibility.
Goodwill messages from participants touched on the need for rapid response to fake news.
The lie suddenly becomes the truth. What do you as spokespersons do about that? A lot of time, by the time it goes viral, by the time you are responding, it's taking 3 days, 2 days. Nobody bothers anymore.
You cannot build up Nigeria by talking down Nigeria. But the truth again is that it's not just about what our people say and when we look at it, it's also about what we in government say about our people.
The keynote address was delivered by Professor Tony Iredia, highlighting the inevitable connection between communication and development.
If you don't speak when you should speak, your agenda is not heard. We must learn to bring out quite a lot of information. By the time the media is more active than it is today, you will create a system where when somebody sees fake news, you will say, has NTA said it? You will go and check. Did channel say it? Did this one say it? The moment people are subjecting what you say to what the conventional media has said, you begin to realize that people now know the difference between fake news and free news.
This summit is not expected to be another talk shop, but the birthplace of deliberations that will improve the value that spokespersons bring to their roles and inspire their commitment not just to their principles or organizations, but to nation building and development. Victoria Longjohn for Channels Television News.
A climate change advocacy organization, the Climate Action Africa, has announced plans to hold a forum to discuss a conversation on Africa's effort to build a sustainable future and climate-smart investments for the continent. The executive director of the organization, Mrs. Grace Mba, explains that the conference aims to catalyze solutions that enhance the sustainability and prosperity of the continent's natural resources and economies. She was speaking at a pre-event media briefing in Abuja.
Climate change to me is seeing my mother's yield reducing annually. It's seeing all the mothers and farmers who raised us unable to maintain their livelihoods because it's constantly being threatened by climate change. So it's all our mothers and fathers who are on the farms daily and cannot yield any fruit from the soil that we are used to reaping from, because of erratic weather patterns, because of unsustainable practices, and environmental pollution. This initiative arose from a call to action. We need to find, innovate, and invest in real solutions that ensure sustainability of livelihoods in farming communities like the one I grew up in. This will safeguard the lives and livelihoods of our mothers, fathers, and children in vulnerable communities.
Now, in keeping with his desire to ensure fair and equitable distribution of palliatives to the poor and vulnerable persons in Gombe State, Governor Inuwa Yahaya has flagged off another round of the initiative in the state. The governor says the palliative distribution has been strategically done during the Muslim Ramadan fasting, which corresponds with Christian Lent and Easter celebrations, to underscore unity and peaceful coexistence in the face of current economic realities.
Governor Inuwa Yahaya arrives the Pantami Stadium amid cheers to flag off the distribution of palliatives to the less privileged and vulnerable persons. The distribution is to cushion the scourging effect of fuel subsidy removal and the attendant economic hardship pervading the country. The beneficiaries will get spaghetti, sugar, rice, maize, and other category of foodstuff. The secretary to the Gombe State government says Governor Yahaya is committed to a fair and equitable distribution of palliatives in the state.
I am highly delighted to welcome you most warmly to this momentous occasion of yet another round of distribution of food palliatives to the less privileged and vulnerable persons in our dear state.
Representing the Deputy Governor, Chief of Staff to the Gombe State government describes the intervention as people-oriented.
His Excellency has ensured a fair and equitable distribution of palliatives to all the 2,988 polling units across all 114 wards in all the 11 LGAs, taking into consideration women, widows, individuals with special needs, and the most vulnerable members of our society.
Governor Yahaya highlights key areas of his administration's intervention for the masses, describing the true Ramadan fasting and Lenten periods as rallying points for the state and Nigeria.
This exercise demonstrates that our commitment to helping the people during difficult times remains an enduring attribute of this administration. From the days of COVID-19 pandemic to the recent removal of fuel subsidy, we've taken steps to alleviate the suffering of our people during the periods of need.
On behalf of the beneficiaries, the Emir of Gombe State hails the governor for his proactive and people-oriented policies.
I would like to thank you on the behalf of my people and less privileged for what we have been doing for the state.
The truckloads of food palliatives will leave the state capital for onward distribution to the 2,988 polling units of Gombe State.
And that's all from the nation's capital. The news continues from Lagos with Ayo.
Many thanks, Terry. To company news, Lafarge Africa plc, a leading innovative and sustainable building solutions company, has held its 2023 Customers Awards in Lagos. The company says recognizing and rewarding its esteemed customers is of utmost importance, as they are an integral part of its success story over the years.
Lafarge Africa plc is once again out to appreciate its customers as it brings everyone under one roof. It's the 2023 Customers Awards ceremony, and those who have worked tirelessly through the various distribution channels for the company are being recognized. The Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Lafarge Africa plc, Mr. Lulu Alade Akinyemi, appreciates the management, staff, and the company's customers for breaking barriers in the year 2023.
We gather to pay tribute to your remarkable achievements and the invaluable contributions that you have made to our business. Your dedication, ingenuity, and partnership have been very instrumental in our success, and for that, we extend our deepest gratitude.
You bring to life our shared vision for success. We're here to show our deep appreciation for the results that we achieve, sometimes in spite of the challenges, but I think generally because of the opportunities that we face here in Nigeria and this wonderful country.
The Star Prize for the National Volume Champion is presented to Sani Nwodo of Cinco West Africa Limited. In line with Lafarge Africa plc's innovative approach to meeting consumer needs, the award night was also used to introduce new products.
For us in Lafarge, our business has been sustainable because we have customers who are very loyal, customers who are very passionate, customers who are resilient and ready to go all the way because they believe in our products.
For the Star Prize winner, it's heartwarming to emerge as the National Volume Champion.
I'm happy because at the end of it, we're able to make it. And I say a very big thank you to Lafarge, and I will assure them that I will keep it up and make sure by come this time next year, I will still remain my position with them.
With this recognition and awards showered on loyal customers, Lafarge Africa plc once again demonstrates its gratitude to partners who have helped the company reach enviable heights.
Lush Hair Nigeria, a leading hair extensions brand, has launched its wet hair care range, which includes the Lush Hair 4-in-1 No-Lie Relaxer Kit, neutralizing shampoo to strengthen hair, deep conditioner to promote growth, and daily leave-in treatment which stops breakage. Now, this product range was introduced to the Hair Styling Association's Pan Nigeria at an event organized in Lagos last month. Those who witnessed the unveiling of the new product include NASHCO President, Lagos State, Mr. Michael Onyanu, NASHCO President, Delta State, Mrs. Priscilla Chibueze, NASHCO National Coordinator, River State, Mrs. Beauty Okeku, and LAPCHA President, Lagos State, Mr. Abayomi Oluwokere, while others are the President of NASHCO in Anambra, Mrs. Ifeoma Okeke, as well as founder of the very first Hairdressers Association of Nigeria, Mrs. Elizabeth Oshinsoya, amongst others. As a brand looking to change the hair game for the Nigerian woman, Lush Hair prides itself on the quality of its hair products and is positive that this new edition will not be any different. Business News is up next with Will Ibong.
Thanks, Ayatunde. Now, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, has described the unverified FX backlogs as illegal. The CBN governor made this known today at the end of the two-day Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Abuja. According to Mr. Cardoso, all valid transactions have been settled following the audit by Deloitte. Now, meanwhile, the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPP, has commended the Central Bank of Nigeria for its efforts in tackling inflation following the 200 basis point hike in interest rates. However, the CPP raises concerns about the limitations of relying solely on monetary policy, while highlighting issues such as weak transmission mechanism and insufficient financial inclusion. The CPP emphasizes the need for a broader approach to economic management. Domestic bonds continued its bearish trend today following the CBN 200 basis
interest rate hike and sell-offs in the MTN Nigeria. John Mekwa has the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, on the day when we had the announcement of a second hike on interest rates in Nigeria for the year 2024, the market dropped. Now that is related, looking at the timing when the announcement was made, but today the market dropped 0.18%, losing the 104,000 level, 103,952.47. That's how the market closed, even though the market cap is still retaining the 58 trillion naira, but it lost some hundreds right here. Remember yesterday it was about 885 right there. But today it's 77. The market mover responsible for this drop is MTN Nigeria. It opened at 235 naira, but closed at 231 naira. That's 1.7% shaved off that. And MTN, if you're an investor in MTN, you might want to keep your ears close to the ground. There's some news going on around that. Now, let's look at the sectors. Banking recovered from yesterday's drop, 0.07%, not enough to fully recover, but it's still up today. Consumer goods is still in the red, 0.12%. Oil and gas is still undecided. One of these days, it will be nice to see some movement in oil and gas sector. But at the close of trade, for a second time this week, we see a drop at the NGX, and it's the bear.
And that's it on business news. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Will. The president has condemned the acts perpetrated by kidnappers across the country, declaring that individuals involved in the despicable crimes must be treated as terrorists. President Bola Tinubu said this at a Ramadan dinner with serving and retired judicial officers led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola. On the review of salaries of judicial officers, the president pledged that his administration will continue to implement necessary reforms to improve the welfare and working conditions of judicial officers. Let's now join Simon Pusey with other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A major bridge in the US city of Baltimore has collapsed into the Patapsco River after a container ship crashed into it. This the moment the cargo ship hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge, causing it to collapse. Here you can see trucks and cars crossing the bridge as it plunges into the water below. Daylight this morning revealed the extent of the accident and the full horror of what happened. A huge search operation is underway for at least 7 people, authorities say, while 2 people have been pulled from the river. It is still not known what caused the crash, but US media report the Dali container ship lost propulsion as it left the port, and the crew on board had warned Maryland officials of a possible crash.
Our state is in shock, and I want to take this moment to speak directly to the people of our state. To our first responders, I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of your courage. I'm in awe of your strength. I'm in awe of everything you do for each and every one of us. You saw a crisis, and you said, what can I do to help? And our response teams are doing everything in our power to rescue and recover the victims of this collapse, literally as we speak. People who, as we speak, are out there are divers, are air assets. People who right now are working to save lives and are doing it because the state asked. And we will update the public as the work continues. To our partners inside and outside of government, I know this has been a long night. We started coordinating immediately after the Key Bridge collapsed.
Russia's Vladimir Putin has acknowledged radical Islamists carried out Friday's deadly attack on a Moscow concert hall, but he repeated his claim that they had some kind of link to Ukraine and the West. The Islamic State group says it was behind the atrocity in which 139 people were killed, and it has released footage of the attack. 22 people are still in a serious condition in hospital, including 2 children, according to Russian officials. Russia's FSB chief, Alexander Bortnikov, has suggested Britain, the US and Ukraine were behind the attack. Ukraine has rejected the Russian claim as absurd. The High Court has ruled that the US must give assurances that Julian Assange will not face the death penalty. US authorities have 3 weeks to provide assurances before judges will consider dismissing the WikiLeaks founder's appeal against extradition to the US. UK judges also want assurances over whether Assange will be able to rely on free speech rights. He has been in a UK prison since 2019 and is wanted by the US for disclosing secret military files in 2010 and 2011. Speaking outside the High Court in London, Assange's wife, Stella, says she is astounded by the decision and calls on the United States to drop the case.
5 years into this case, the United States has managed to show the court that their case remains an attack on press freedom, an attack on Julian's life.
Venezuela's main opposition coalition says its candidate has been blocked from July's presidential election. The opposition Unitary platform said it was unable to access the Electoral Council website to register its candidate, Corina Yoris. It is the latest setback for the PUD, whose leader, Maria Corina Machado, has been barred from running for office. Polls have suggested that if the election was free and fair, Ms. Machado could beat President Nicolas Maduro. Ethiopia's largest bank says it has recovered almost 3/4 of the $14 million it lost in a glitch that allowed customers to withdraw more money than they had in their accounts. Abe Sano, head of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, said about $10 million had been recovered and that thousands of customers had returned the cash voluntarily. Mr. Sano warned those who had not will face criminal charges. Most of the money was withdrawn by university students. And Buckingham Palace has announced the King will attend the Easter Matin service at St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle on Easter Sunday. The Queen and other members of the royal family will also attend. Today, the King took part in an audience at the Palace with community faith leaders from across the UK. The event was to celebrate those taking part in the Windsor Leadership Trust programme, which organisers say encourages and supports dialogue, harmony and understanding at a time of heightened international tension. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Team Nigeria boxing coaches want the Sports Ministry to pay more attention to boxing as they shift attention to the Olympic Games in Paris, having set a new record at the 13th African Games in Ghana. On the last day of boxing action, Nigerian boxers recorded resounding victories in their different categories, winning 8 gold of the 10 finals they qualified for. The Super Eagles of Nigeria are right now trailing Mali in the international friendly in Marrakesh, Morocco, with the game heading to the second half. Tori got the opener for the Malians in the 18th minute of the first half. And that's it on sports. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Chris. And the main news again. For the second time this year, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee today raised the benchmark interest rate by 200 basis points to 24.75% from 22.75%. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a good night and please stay safe.